Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic. And on today's episode, we have a treat. We have Andy Williams, who's running for Illinois Attorney General. And he is not a career politician. He is a regular person with real life experience. Not been in office for 55 years and out of touch. This guy is significantly in touch with society. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you.
Can you tell our listeners about yourself? What's your origin story and how did you get to where you are today?
I was born in Aurora, Illinois. It's the second largest city in Illinois. My parents separated when I was 2. I stayed with my father. He wound up dating a German lady. That's her national origin. We'd say white, but her national origin is German. And so I was reared up with her from 2 to maybe 12. I went to Germany when I was 7. I had summer vacations every year, school clothes, play clothes. I played the saxophone and violin. Today I look back and say, man, I had a beautiful childhood. Back then, with all the times I was on punishment and being disciplined, I would be like, man, I'm going through turmoil, I would say. But I look back and say that discipline and foundation for the chores and everything that I had helped me be who I am today. I appreciate my mother, my stepmother, my father. I had a blended family growing up, so that was unique. I dealt with a lot of misguided children. Not a lot, just a few, I would say. That'd be like, at least my mama not white and things like that. In a sense, it kind of shaped some of the form of rejection or feeling isolated or, feeling different. My first book, well, I won't say my first book, but one of the books I got as a child was my book of Bible stories from the Jehovah's Witnesses. And so they come knock on the door Saturday mornings, I think it was, or whenever, and I got the book. That's important because I was on punishment. That's the only book I could read, depending on the severity. Because I also had Aesop Fables and my Velveteen Rabbit. So it was,
right.
Some of the things that shaped my childhood. But my stepmother and father separated when I was 12, and I got involved in gangs. But I always, even in grade school, my classmates, their older brothers, were in gangs, and I thought it was cool. I never looked at it as anything. Just, man, look at them. They cool. And so when my mother, my stepmother and father separated, I was able to just start hanging out with the brothers that were in these gangs. And I just excelled. Not because something I did, particularly just who I was naturally. I think it had a lot to do with the foundation of how I grew up. I was a thinker. My dad owned his own construction business. He normally worked from sun up to sundown, so I was always vying for his attention and his time. And after him and my stepmother got suspended, I got a lot of it because whenever I was suspended, I had to go to work with him. My origin of the story is, look, I grew up in a family. I had neighbors. I lived on a dead-end street. My dad talked to everybody, so he taught me how to communicate. He always had dreams, so I was able to dream and just see those things. And going through the gangs, I wind up going to prison for a strong arm robbery, which the one that I actually went to prison for, I did not do it. It was a lieutenant of the Royal Police Department's wife at that time. I would never have done that. I had a very strong respect for elders, unless you own a store or something, because I was always stealing from stores. So I don't want to say like everybody. But then I wound up doing 9 months in the county jail, 4 months in the Illinois Department of Corrections. I got out. The childhood home I grew up in, my father had rented it out, and it was a drug house. This is in 91. And my friends come over like, man, you in a good spot here. So then I got introduced to drug game, started selling cocaine, but it was powder. And 3 months later, I was arrested. They did a raid on my house. I was arrested, got caught with an ounce, and then I went to the county jail I think I was facing 6 to 30. I made a confession. I confessed to the drugs in a roundabout way because a friend was there with me that morning because I was trading guns for drugs, and it was a setup. So I didn't want my friend to be in jail, so I confessed. I said, man, I found the drugs. Made up some story. So one of these guys in there, an older brother, remember his name, Bernard? He said, if you never would have made that statement, you could have beat the case. He said, go get a law library pass. And I did, from Judge Puckland. And I wound up spending about 5 months in the law library. So the money I got, I used that to learn. And I got my statement suppressed. I took the case to a bench trial and beat it. And the judge said, I know you're guilty because I suppressed your statement, but the state didn't prove it. That was so heroic. When I got back to the county jail, the people in the jail had already heard about it. They was banging on the windows, like just happy for me.
That's terrific. And you said a couple things I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive in. It's kind of funny, and the listeners, if they've tuned in every week, they know that my father-in-law recently passed away. And Andy, I appreciate your thoughts on that. Andy, off the air, sent me some very nice sentiments. But when he went to Roosevelt High School in Chicago, and he was the member of a club, and I'm making quotes with my fingers. His club was the Top Hatters, and it was a gang. But in the 50s, 60s, they called them clubs. It's the same thing. And while they didn't do drugs, they certainly got their share of fights. And my brother-in-law said something and I can't use the same words on air, but he's like, if you effed with my dad, you were effed. I totally get what you're saying. And in my mind, that gang experience, and keep in mind, my background is criminal justice. I was never a police officer, but I get all sides of the whole justice or injustice, if you will, system. With that said, the loyalty that you showed your friend to not get your friend incarcerated for a longer period of time really, I think, would translate to loyalty to the people who you represent. What are your thoughts on that?
One thing that happened in my generation, at least the brothers I was hanging around with, you never snitched, and you never let somebody do something for you that they didn't have to do. He was not my rappy, and a rappy is somebody that you do commit crimes with. He was security for me that day. So he had nothing to do with that. And it took me nothing to say the truth. One thing I didn't discuss is when I was a kid growing up, I was an altar boy. I also did sign language.
Really?
At the church, I would go to the nursing homes on the holidays, Christmas and Easter, and do sign language. I was very involved in the church because it was walking distance, and that's about the only place I could go when I was on punishment. And after we would do the sign language, we'd go to Chuck E. Cheese and play, and I had a little girlfriend there. So it was beautiful to me to be able to be involved in church because it gave me a way out. It was a way to say, hey, I can escape. And I was always the first to learn all my Bible verses. Like, I had a real good foundation, but it was me. Like, my parents weren't the one forcing me to go to church. I was choosing to go to church based on my circumstances. You know, you hear from my Sunday school teachers, Andy was always a bright kid, very respectable. That church part really plays into how I had a foundation to build from and those principles. And I always say this, that when I walked away and was like the prodigal, altar boy or whatever, the church never came to get me.
Okay.
They never came to the community when I was hanging out and said, hey, Andy, why don't you and your friends come back? And that's the part that I see that I'm doing that now. Like, I saw what I was lacking, what missed from me, and I said I'd become that now. So that ties into, as we'll get into later, the evolution of my story,
Right.
Me coming into gangs, I just left the gangster disciple alone, the gangster part. I still am a disciple, though, which is a student.
Right.
That's what a disciple is. I attribute my transformation to the leader of, quote unquote, the gangster disciples, Larry Hoover, because it came out with a blueprint. And they talked about dedication, determination, discipline, family. If you keep going down the route that you're going to wind up here where I'm at. When I was in Vandalia, I spoke to the older brothers, and they could not believe I was in jail. They're like, bro, you are like, definitely don't fit this mold that is here. Don't ever come back here. No, they said, you don't belong here. That's important because when I made my statement, I was able to get the statement suppressed because I said I was afraid. I said, I'll tell you where the drugs come from if I don't have to go back to prison. Because I'm scared if I go back to prison, they're going to beat me up because partially what they said, if you come back, this was going to happen to you, which that was never said.
Right.
What they said is you don't belong here. And that's important because if I said that the police officer told me, oh, I can't promise you won't go back to prison. I can promise you won't go back to prison, but you'll have to do jail time if you tell us where the drugs came from. And I made that story up because I read it in the law library. If you're promised leniency, you could get your statement suppressed. And I did. In fact, the guy who was a leader of the North Central Narcotic Task Force became the chief of police, William Bill Powell. And we're good friends today. I got a letter recommendation from him. I just look back at this journey and I'm like, man, God, you've been so good to me. And he's like, nah, I did this for you, son. So, you could be part of this Joshua generation that is here today. So as we talked about earlier, I appreciate the journey that I went through. There's things that I wish I would not have done, but I appreciate the journey.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. What is the Joshua generation?
So for those that understand Moses, who led the people out of Egypt, which was bondage, Moses had a protege named Joshua. Joshua was under Moses, kind of like,
right.
Like he is my apprentice. And so Moses sends Joshua, Caleb, and these 10 spies to go spy out the promised land,
right,
the land of Canaan. And when they go, Joshua and Caleb, they see the grapes, the milk and honey, and all this stuff that's flowing. The rest of the 10 spies, they see the giants. And see, what Joshua was not concerned about was the giants, because he knew how good God was. He knew he could defeat the giants if he went with God. And so when the other 10 spies went back with the negative report, that whole generation died out. All of those,
I get
they died out.
Okay.
And so then the Joshua generation, they rose up. And then Joshua, what he did is he was able to distribute the land to the different tribes, the different ways.
Right.
And he was rooted in his faith in God. And so I was named Joshua by an elder, which I call him the Moses generation. He's a national folk art guy, had a house in Aurora with all these sculptures around it. And one day I just went by this property and decided to clean it up just because. And we built a relationship, and he wound up saying, you know what, you Joshua. And so I talked to him throughout the years, been with him a lot. And I really began to understand who Joshua was. Joshua, man, he was a righteous man. And that's the Joshua generation. And so when I look at our world today, the Joshua generation is more than pretty much 80 million people that have either had a conviction, a record, somebody has a family member. We can all relate. And so we don't have to regurgitate the same thing that the Moses generation did. We're saying we respect and honor you, but we're rooted in this right now. We're not into this whole racism thing. We're not into this division about Democrat, Republican, specifically for the Bible, because it said, let there be no division amongst you. Love your neighbor. This is the greatest commandment. So this is the generation that I'm moving in.
Very interesting that you say that you were given the name Joshua and not your government name, Andy. I'm messing with you a little bit. That's me trying to be funny. Doesn't always come out that way. But I have a cousin, and I did something similar with him. I gave him the name of Avram. And you're a Bible guy. I'm very deep into the Old Testament. And people say, why that name? I go, because his house is always open, like the tent was always open for strangers. And it was very meaningful. It was right before he did a 5-year mission in Guatemala, bringing the word of Jesus into prisons and converting people. So very, very interesting that you said that. And then the other thing that you talked about the gangster disciples. I need you to refresh my memory. Is that the 6-pointed star or the 5-pointed star?
It's a 6-pointed star.
That's what I thought. Okay. So just to let you know, I do a speaking engagement on racism and anti-Semitism, and I was doing one at a synagogue, and people in Deerfield were up in arms because there was GD tagging. It was I can't think of it. Well, it's a GD. It had a 6-pointed star, and people were saying, "Oh, that's anti-Semitic," and I'm like, "That's not anti-Semitic. That's representing a gang." No, it's anti. I'm like, "Look, I've been studying this. That is a gang. That is not. That has nothing to do with Judaism." And I was able to educate people who were, I want to say, misdirected and upset because they were misdirected. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, now we have gangs in our area." And it just rolled into a different problem. But I was able to say, this is not racism. This is a group that's cohesive, and they don't care what religion you are. They don't care. Trust. We are trusted and established in teaching others to protect themselves from physical harm. What if we could also protect your wallet? At Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic programs, safety isn't only about strength. It's about smart choices and peace of mind. With decades of public safety experience, from law enforcement and firefighting to stress resilience coaching, Marcus equips you to stay calm, confident, and in control, no matter the pressure. And now, with our new partnership with Think Energy Plus, we're giving you a chance to protect what matters most, your budget, by switching to cleaner, fixed-rate electric energy and soon-to-be gas. With personalized savings, you're investing in both your safety and your savings. And with AutoSave, you are automatically switched to the lowest energy rate. Whether you are guarding your personal safety or safeguarding your finances, Marcus Melnick and Think Energy Plus are your trusted allies. Discover how to stay safe and save by visiting thinkenergy.plus/Marcus Melnick. That's thinkenergy.plus/Marcus Melnick. After you visit, send your electric bill for a free rate analysis to marcus@firearmmentor.com. Smart protection for your body and your wallet. You mentioned Democrat, Republican, black, white, and these questions they're not intended to create tension, but there may be tension with them. Can you talk about that 2009 traffic stop?
So it was August 2019. I was called to come to my high school, and there was some fighting and gang stuff going on. So, they called me and said, "Hey, to come see, talk to the kids." So I was talking to the assistant principal. I leave, drive through my old neighborhood, was about to go to the lawyer's office, one of the firms I work with, and the police ride by me. Boom, I'm going one way, they're going the opposite way. I see them in the rearview mirror. I get pulled over. They say, "Where you coming from?" "East High." "Wait, none of your business. Really? Like, what you questioning me about this for?" And then it was four undercover police officers wind up pulling me over. "And you know why we stopped you? You didn't use your turn signal 100 feet and you rolled the stop sign." They were never even behind me. So that was obstructing justice. That was a lie. The stop lasted over an hour.
Ooh.
So my wife, I was on the phone with her when this happened. I said, "Babe, they finna pull me over." And they said that it looked like I was coming from a gang house that they were shooting. And it just was all a lie. And they profiled me. It was a pretextual stop, but they profiled me. The place is in my wife's name. She's Puerto Rican. You see a little colored man driving through, and your implicit bias instantly comes to this negativity. They said they were doing a stakeout down the street. Well, I sought the GPS tracking system. How convenient you didn't have the time set up right. Just a bunch of garbage. I took it to trial. It lasted 4.5 years due to COVID. Took it to a bench trial. And here's where it gets funny. I was found not guilty for coming to a complete stop, but guilty for failing to use my signal 100 feet by the same testimony. So that's kind of like, how could that happen? Right. And I used to call it it was inconsistent testimony.
Right.
Or legally inconsistent verdict. It couldn't have been. Some guy told me I was saying it wrong, but nevertheless, there's a lot that happened in them 4 years, and I wind up suing everybody. Every judge involved in there except one. Every prosecutor. I sued Pritzker, Kwame Raoul, Alex Giuliani. And the reason why is because they are passing public policy disguised as law and making we the people be responsible for funding their government.
Preach.
And I'm like, no, bro,
Yes.
I'm not a slave to you.
Right.
So I hit him, boom, got him on a RICO suit, violation of oath of office, all types of stuff. And went to I was already in the court, the federal court, with this unlawful stop. And then I probably should not have sued them for all this stuff. It was like an 83-page complaint. I mean, it was so beautifully well written. And they ruled against me. I appealed it to the 7th Circuit Appellate Court. They ruled against me, and I'm possibly headed to the Supreme Court. Ooh. I got 60 more days to do it. But what I want to do with me going to the Supreme Court is to teach the people. Because part of the suit is the stop was the modern day slave patrols. And I parallel the history of slavery as what we've been taught and how it parallels today. But the irony about me is I don't hate people. I don't hate the profession of policy enforcers, because that's what they enforce is policies, or police officers, because I have several friends that are police officers, retired sheriffs that I call Sheriff Mendrick. These are people that I know, love, and adore, and break bread with them. So what this God has given me is Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacekeepers. You're going to have to choose who you're going to serve, because I don't have a problem with the profession. I have a problem when you turn a blind eye to evil. Woe unto those that call evil good and good evil. That's the problem I have. Because those 4 officers, 2 of them was straight bogus. The other 2 were innocent. And one of the other 2 was a righteous man. And I could tell. So again, I say, God, why you allow me to go through that? He said, son, I'm doing this so you got a testimony, so you can give the story and I'll get the glory.
It's very interesting, your perspective. And I'd be an idiot if I disagreed with it. I'm not an idiot. So I agree with you. I didn't draw the slave patrol thing to modern. I didn't come up with that. You did. And I'm like, oh, the light bulb went on. I see. Okay. So I get it. But my background wasn't from that slavery, at least in the United States, the whole slavery thing. So I appreciate that perspective. Your website talks about black drivers, I believe it's just in Aurora, being 6.2 times more likely to be pulled over than white, and Latinos 3.8 times more likely to be stopped. How did you get this data?
I got the data from the ACLU.
Oh.
And yeah.
Okay.
And so I just accepted it for what it was, because, again, the irony about my case is the ACLU has a lawsuit against the city of Chicago, and I just mirrored their lawsuit but put my facts in there.
Right.
And they said, well, you didn't state a claim. I'm like, okay, whatever. But I got it from the ACLU. Again, I think this is what they're taught. That this is what you do. In fact, on the website, it was a special operations group. That's the people that pull me over. They say they target certain neighborhoods. So that right there is discrimination.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the funny thing is, I was going to totally challenge you on those statistics. And then I did some research thinking, oh, well, are there 6.2 more black people in Aurora than white people? And the answer is no. The black population of Aurora is about 10.5%, which is below the 12 to 13% of the country. And in my mind, okay, well, if everything was fair, there would be about 10% of the traffic stops with African Americans, and there would be Latino population is 30%, so 30% of the stops should be Latino if everything is fair. And it, you just said it's not, and I don't disagree. So your numbers are solid. I just wanted to know where they came from, because if they came from TikTok, I'd question it. but the ACLU is definitely a great, an incredible source. Have you ever been on a ride along with police?
I did.
Oh,
and so
cool.
when I was getting my bachelor's degree, well, it was my associate's degree, I went on a ride along with the Naperville Police Department. It was in the nighttime.
Okay.
And so they did have a scenario, but they're like, you got to sit in the car and this.
Right.
But it was fun. And again, I know a lot of police officers. In fact, the chief of police where I live at right now in Darien, he was the chief of police in Aurora.
Okay.
And I went and talked to him one day because my son, we'd say stepson, but he's my son, got some stupid ordinance violation. And then I went to go talk to the chief, and my son was like, I cannot believe you know the chief. Like, when the chief found out it was me in the hallway, he comes out, hugs me right away. We're in there an hour and a half, and it blows my son's mind. Like, you be suing the police, Andy. And I said, I told you, bro, I'm not what y'all see on the media and all that. I really care about people.
Right.
So he just blew his mind.
And your website also described, or you are self-described as a spiritual abolitionist. What does that mean?
I really got that from one of my buddies that's in Washington State Prison. I abolish hate. That's what I really do. And through the spirit, because we're all spirit. So if me being a self-identified spiritual abolitionist, I am abolishing, and it really is in me. It's whenever I say something, it's because I've been through it. I had to renew my mind and abolish the hate that I had inside of my heart to get free from that. And now I operate in the spirit of love, and God is a spirit, and that is a spirit of love. So if we abolish hate and get back to the spirit of love that's in all of us, because every one of us has good, that's what I'm set out to do. Abolish hate.
Interesting. Through
the spirit. And the Bible talks about we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. It's spirits and principalities. That's what it is. So when we're trying to fight this battle in the flesh, no, you got to really do it in the spirit realm. And then that's when you get to see, wow, everybody done been through some sort that has shaped their mindset, their identity. So what we have to do is unlearn some of the things we've been taught and relearn, and the renewing of your mind. And when a lot of times people think it's impossible, and I said, well, look at the Amish community. I think that's a very good example of what's possible.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.